Hello everyone, welcome back to another training video by Digital Downs. And today we are going to cover instructions, jockey instructions, both for workouts and for racing. It's a main part of the game, right? I mean, it's part of strategy, it's part of figuring out a horse, quite a few things. And jockey instructions are key to workout times and identifying the proper distance that a horse likes to run. And it can be a range. It can be 3, 4 different distances. It can be 2 distances. Rarely is it just one, but that does happen, especially with 4 furlong. Usually really good 4 furlong horses don't really run much higher than that, maybe 5 furlong, and that's about it. And I think I covered that in another video. Like I said, jockey instructions are good to figure out a distance, but once you get into the race, you kind of have to apply what you learned through your workouts, but then how are you going to apply it in a race, right? And so it's effective, because it's not like a set rule, right? Like if your horse likes push at 6 furlong, and that doesn't mean that that's your only option when you race that horse at 6 furlongs, and we'll get into that later. But this is purely about jockey instructions. So there's 4 jockey instructions. There's push, there's steady, there's relax, and there's jockey decides, which actually has its own set of instructions. And I don't know if people are too familiar with that. But a jockey decides instruction is the 4th instruction, and a jockey decides will pick an instruction when the horse breaks the gait. It does not mean that the jockey is going to decide one of the push, steady, or relax instructions that already exist. It's going to choose one of 3 of its own unique instructions for the race. So please keep that in mind, and I think that if you review some of your track times and workouts, you'll see there are some subtle differences between the jockey decides instructions and some of the other ones. So again, we generally, when we're working out a horse, it's kind of universal. We train at 6 furlongs push at the proper weight, 120 pounds for colts, 118 pounds for fillies. And that's really just so that there's a baseline, right, of times. And the more everybody uses 6 furlong push, the more we can kind of compare our work to our previous horses, other people's horses, and so on. So, and instructions tend to have a sequence, which you'll learn. Right? There's many new players in the game right now, and I think this is going to be a helpful video. But there's a sequence to the instruction that really doesn't deviate from the sequence too much. Right? You have a push, steady, relax, relax. Right? Or you have a push, steady, relax. Or something. It depends on if you have a sprinter, a classic, or a router, a stayer. I mean, a horse that's going 2,400 meters, going a mile and a half, it's not uncommon for this horse to push all the way through 5 furlongs, 6, 7, a mile, an eighth, push at a mile and a quarter, steady at a mile and 3/8, and then relax at a mile and a half. That's kind of common for a true router. Just like your sprints, you may run into a situation where the 4 furlong is push, the 5 furlong is push, 6 furlong is steady, relax, 7 furlong is relax, and so on. And that means it would be relaxed for the rest of the distance, but it's not its ideal distance. And we'll get into ideal distance and the sequence of the instruction throughout this video. I have some tiles I made. I'll throw them up on the screen, and then you can kind of read through that yourself as far as what to do. Okay, I have a slide up here, and it's an example of a fast horse, a horse that's got a lot of early speed, fast out of the gate, and not real good closing time. And you can see this is the sequence of the instructions that you'll find common throughout many speedsters. The 4 furlong push, 5 furlong push, 6 furlong steady, 7 furlong relax, 1 mile relax, and everything past that relax. So this is the base sequence you'll see for sprinters like this across the board. The next slide here is for a typical sprinter, ones that aren't extremely fast out of the gate. They're above 22 seconds, and you can see the sequence order of instructions here. This is a typical sequence of instructions for sprinters like this. It doesn't have 4 furlong speed, so that's not an option. It also does not have fast enough speed for 5 furlong, so that's not ideal either. Your 6 furlong is going to be push. Your 7 furlong is going to be steady or push. your mile, 8 furlongs, is going to be steady or relaxed. Your 9 furlong, which is a mile and an eighth, is going to be push or steady, and your mile and a quarter is going to be steady, relaxed, and you're not going pretty much any further above that. So this is your base sequence of instructions for your typical sprinter. Next slide up here, we have an example of your typical classic type horse that likes to run your middle distances, your 7 furlongs, mile, mile and eighth, and so on. And you can see that the 6 furlong here is 22.47 opening split, and the closing is 108.86. You're not going to run this on 4 furlong or 5 furlong. 6 furlong is not even ideal. So you're looking at the wheelhouse between 7 furlong, 8 furlong, 9 furlong, 10 furlongs, and maybe a mile and 3/8, but it's definitely maxed out at that point. So again, this is a base setup of instructions, your sequence of instructions for your classic style horses, and you're going to find that this is very common amongst many classic type horses. Next slide up here is for your routers or your stayer types, and this is the sequence of instructions, or your base sequence of instructions, that you'll find on the majority of horses. And what you see here is obviously all the way up to 7 furlongs. It's not really an ideal race. It can race in those other races, but may not win. Well, most likely will not win. And you can see it starts kicking in on push around a mile, and then a mile and an eighth, mile and a quarter. It's steady at a mile and 3/8, and steady or relax at a mile and a half. So again, this is a typical sequence of instruction for your router types, and this works for your workouts, and obviously applies to racing. And when we get into the racing segment of this, you basically are going to take this time that you've run and the instruction. You're going to look at your gate draw. You're going to look at your competition, and you're going to try to figure out what's the best instruction for this race. Do I want to shoot out faster? Do I want to lay back a little bit? And this is where you're going to use your instruction to find the position that you want on the track. You have 8 horses on the track, and where do you want to run? Do you want to run on the rail? Do you want to run in lane 2? Do you want to run in the back? Do you want to run in the front? All those things are important, and you want to have a proper position. We have these races sometimes that are really clean, right? Everybody's set up in 2 lanes, and they're trailing, and they're making their moves or whatever it is. And then we have other ones where it just seems like it's chaos, right? Horses are trying to get everywhere. That's all instruction. That's all strategy, driven, and and it impacts the race greatly. Okay, I'm back here. That first part ended up being a lot longer than I expected. So the racing aspect of instruction is going to have to be on a second video. But real quick, what I didn't touch on, obviously on these instructions, was the Jockey Decides. The Jockey Decides, like I said before, is its own set of instructions, and you can go through it the same way with training at each distance. However, I don't find it to be very useful at all in workouts in trying to decide what type of horse you have in comparison to others. That's why you use push. And if you're using push to figure out what that is, then the Jockey Decides doesn't even come into play. And then when you're moving around from steady and relax, that's really to find its best distance or range of distance. Whatever before it's not ideal, whatever's after it's not ideal. This is the ideal distance setup for this horse. Which brings me to my next point, which is important, and I wanted to add this, which has to do with the relax instruction. Okay, relax obviously is useful. Okay, I just want people to be aware that not every horse responds the same way to relax, right? So when you find it in the sequence, when we talk about the sequence of push, 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 steady, relax, you can keep going with the relax, right? Because once it hits the second relax, everything's going to be relaxed after that. So when you're working a horse and you're finding that its best time is this, or you're running good times, and you can keep it on relax, next distance, relax, next distance, relax, and the times are all good. Be cautious of that, because you're going to see that some horses, after that second relax, in order, you can have a relax, but when you start having relax, that these aren't the ideal distances for this horse. And I think you're going to see the horse respond poorly. Not all cases, so I expect everybody to experiment, but I think that you're going to find that it's out of its wheelhouse, even though it has uh, it has fast times on relax, right? So, I just think if you have a sprinter whose ideal range is 6 furlongs, 7 furlongs, a mile, and maybe a mile and an eighth, okay, as its wheelhouse, and you have it, and it's good work numbers at a mile and 3/8 on relax, but you've been using relax since 1 mile, relax at 1 mile, relax at a mile and an eighth, relax at a mile and a quarter, and you're going to relax at a mile and 3/8. It's not likely, okay, that this horse is going to be successful in a race with a bunch of other horses at a mile and 3/8 when those horses in that race are generally routers and stayers who are closers. They're built for that race and they're not relaxing. They're pushing through. So I think you have to keep that in mind when you're looking at the range, right? And everything that before this area, this distance is not ideal, and everything after this distance is not ideal. You have your push to your relax, and then if you start to have success of relaxes in a row, that most likely that's not its ideal distance. So just keep that in mind, and I think you should experiment with that. And I think that you'll find in a race, you're gonna see that it's probably out of class. All right, I just wanted to get that in.